Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric, this being a show right to my crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of City on a Hill. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we pick up with DeCourcy and Siobhan and that tragic situation. The fact of the matter is, the moment she started waking up in pain, that's what I was worried about, what we were going to get at first. But I was like, okay, she's okay, the baby's okay, and now the aftermath of this. I don't know whether there's lasting damage from like maybe the stress or whatever. Like I'm ignorant to like all that goes into a miscarriage. Like it just seems like just the shitty like circumstance of just, it almost feels like it just happens, but like I said, I don't know if they're extenuating circumstances that like make that more likely to happen. But she ultimately ended up losing a baby, and obviously, like, you know, it devastates them. You know, she asking DeCourcy to get rid of everything that's a reminder, and all that's left is the baby carriage, which he took it out to throw it away, and just like afterwards, he just explodes, like kicking it, like trying to break it, just because it's just like, it's fucked up. It's like, you know, we're finally taking those steps to having the family. Yeah, he was reluctant to kind of go for it. Yeah, but it's like, now that it was happening, it's like, you know, before they even had the chance, you know, to be parents. They were on their way to being, before they even really got started, they lost their child, you know? Especially because DeCourcy blames himself the most, because it's like, I brought this into our lives. It's like, if I hadn't gone after Anton the way I did, maybe none of this would happen. But, you know, Siobhan's all saying, like, I helped bring it into our house, too, by, like, defending, like, Grace and stuff like that. So, Eloise shows up to be there. She's, you know, and she's confiding in Siobhan, like, I understand, like, you know, the heartache you're feeling right now, it's a heartache of a mother. She's like, at the very least, I can take my heartache and use it and help my child. Sadly, you don't have that option. And that was, like, honestly, a heartbreaking scene, especially seeing Siobhan cry, too. It's just like that, it's just a heartbreaking scene. But it's also this beautiful scene of her mom being there for her. So, you know, telling her, it's like, before you, me and your dad, we had 2 miscarriages. And it's like, you know, and it's just that her being born is kind of like this miracle of like, yeah, despite the tragedies that happened beforehand, kind of like whether or not, you know, it's a hard thing, kind of, you know, picking yourself up afterwards, because that's a conversation for Siobhan and DeCourcy. Like, are they going to try again? Like, are either one of them going to be willing to try again, considering this? Because this is enough to make someone be like, I'm scared. Like, what if it happens again? You know, so. One, maybe even both of them won't want to go through this pain again, or maybe both of them are willing to take a chance, you know? Especially after hearing what her mom said, that might be enough to push Siobhan to later on want a kid, like, try again, because it's like, you know, my parents eventually had me, so, like, you know, who's to say the same thing won't happen to us, you know? But, you know, I'm curious to see where that goes. Obviously, DeCourcy wants to stick around, but, you know, Siobhan's like, I already got my mom fawning over me, I don't need you to do it too, so just go to work. And I love the line from Eloise being like, you know, forget all the stuff I said about Grace Campbell. Put her and lock her up. Put her whole fucking family in the ground. It's like, yo. Well, or behind bars or something. She might not have even said in the ground, but it was like, she went hard being like, nah, fuck no, bury that whole fucking family, was her exact line. It's like, yo. It's like the pain my daughter's going through. I lost a grandchild before I even had a chance to fully be a grandmother. It's like, nah. Like, her family's got to pay, you know? So, where DeCourcy was kind of out for revenge, who knows where Siobhan is necessarily feeling towards this. She was just more so wanting, like, to be home and everything be okay, like, because you're just as much of a target by Anton. And obviously you also have, but to have Eloise kind of on the warpath as well, it's just kind of an interesting development. So, kind of focusing on the case, we have Jackie's side of things, where obviously looking at the blood and everything at the crime scene, you know, talking to, because this is actually earlier in the episode, it's the whole, like, yeah, one of them got shot. Obviously, there was, like, a witness that said, like, there was one black male dragging another, so Calvin and Anton, but it's like, there's no, like, anything at the hospital is about a gunshot wound, so Grace was handling it locally, because basically someone she knew got the bullet out of Anton, but, like, he was out of blood, and it's like, he needs to go to a hospital, but she's like, I'm O negative, so maybe you can give him my blood, but it's like, I need certain equipment. So, but later on, she shows up at her place. I love that Jackie shows up. She's literally in the house, and he's like picking the lock, and I just love it. He's not like oh shit, he just casually picks the lock and goes, oh hey Grace, can I come in? I'm like, it's the most like oh hey, we're neighbors, oh you left your door unlocked, I come in all the time, so I'm gonna just come right in. And she's like, no you may not. And obviously he's looking, and the actual episode title was it Apophasis or something like that. Basically, he's like when you're talking about something without talking about it, mentioning it without mentioning it. And he's like, and then he's kind of looking through her place, and then he goes over to her shoes, and it's like, oh, the blood. Everyone always ends up forgetting about the blood. So obviously, when they do arrest her, she hasn't asked for her lawyer yet. She hasn't talked. Even to Corsi being like, oh, like this is before. I believe that was all before everything went down with Siobhan. Yeah, it was actually before then. I'm kind of mixing up the order of things in my head with this episode, but Jackie's kind of like, yeah, like her circumstances of her being a criminal in a very like complicated situation. It's like, yeah, that's like 99.9% of all criminals, so at the same time, it's just kind of like, who fucking cares? Like, lock her up. It's like, she's just as culpable. She like covered for her kid and stuff like that. So like, just kind of lock her up. Cause for him, it's like, for the first time she's shut the fuck up, and it's like, and of course she's like, maybe you can take a page out of her book for once yourself, Jackie. But, obviously the Corsi, well, eventually, when the whole situation comes out about, what happened to, because Guy was like, okay, we're going to handle this with delicacy and tact. And he's like, Jackie's like, says it in his usual quote-unquote tactful way. He says some stuff, and you're like, Guy's like, what the hell did I just say? And Jackie's like, why? It's like, you had to say a very coarse statement that it's like, oh yeah, that statement had no goddamn tact at all. So they end up questioning Grace, and obviously Grace wants a lot of stuff that she kind of did dropped. Also bringing up the whole thing about Jackie putting a gun to her face, which I love him being like, yeah, isn't it funny lies when you know the truth? It's like, yeah, it's funny because we do know the truth. You did put a gun in her face, you piece of shit. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, yeah, all right, let's move past the lie. Moving on, let's forget about these false accusations, these indiscretions of mine that are actually true. Let's ignore that. Because even later on, Guy's like, did you actually put a gun on her face? And Jackie just kind of shrugs. I'm like, you're so garbage, dude. But the fact is, once again, it's so interesting. Like I said, like he always has I keep saying that a lot. He has those moments where you're just like, you're actually not too bad, Jackie, because he comes after her. It's like, all right, we want to forget about this, sure. Want to forget about that, sure. The fact of the matter is, your son shot Siobhan, and she lost a baby. That baby's gone now because of your son, So we're not going to forget that. So basically, they're offering her these deals in certain regards if she helps them take down Anton. Which that circumstances kind of like, obviously, like, I think they probably were listening in. They probably had her wired the way she was like, did you shoot Siobhan? And he was like, not answering. And then she slaps him. It's like they were probably looking for an actual confession and waiting to, like, now that they had that, they were probably going to, because like there was a little bit, because I feel like if she was wired, they probably would have jumped on it immediately. Why wait? That makes me think maybe she wasn't wired, or maybe she was and they just needed to get, I don't know how that works, especially back then, like having that wire on and everything. Like maybe they have to like pull the, like they have to, because it isn't like it might not be electronic at this point in time in the 90s. They probably have like a tape recording and they have to like process everything and say, all right, we got the confession, we heard everything, all right, let's go get him now. So Grace is set up in a situation of like, yeah, we need to get him like a doctor out of town and yada yada yada. But as they're walking and he's reminiscing a little bit, it's like you can tell it's affecting Grace, because I was like, had she sewn him out because the way she's acting? But at the same time, it's like, oh no, she definitely is. She even said that line of like, yeah, the moment we take care of your brother, we're done. I don't know whether that was something, whether that hadn't been like set up yet, and then when she left and went to go talk to Anton the second time, like maybe by then the cops had talked to her about it. I don't know. But either way, she felt bad because reminiscing like that, it's like hearing that story about like the kid who ripped Anton's He-Man shirt and then Anton beat the crap out of him. But then eventually, like, his mom had to come pick him up, and Grace didn't say anything the entire time. He's like, oh, the moment I get home, I know I'm going to get a big helping of preaching. But she didn't really, like, what she basically ended up saying is like family's kind of there for, essentially they look out for each other. So she's not too mad about what he did, because it's like, you're looking out for your little brother. And she went back to work. And all that hits Grace because I was like, oh, I'm betraying my child. I'm supposed to look out for my family, and I'm not doing that here. So obviously, Anton's running, and he runs into a nearby house, gun locked and everything. Chris and even Jackie being like, don't do this, kid. Come on, walk out, throw down the gun. And you had that asshole Tony being like, nah, I'm going to go in. It's like, you literally got orders to stand down. But he's like, oh, I'm not going to wait for that bastard to, like shoot one of us and blah, 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 And he's sneaking in there, and and the sad thing is the last thing Anton hears is, your mom helped us, how do you think we found you? And it's like realizing like the last thing he hears is his mom's betrayal. And that's also the thing too, like that's great. The last thing Anton's going to hear about her, and she knows that, like that I betrayed him, that I turned on him. And it's like, that's a heartbreaking thing. And Tony pops him. Chris goes in there and like eventually like attacks him, going like, what the fuck, what happened? I told you to stand down. He's like, I was trying to block him off. It's like, you could have blocked him off by doing what I told you to do. What happened is like the dude sweeped on me, and the way his partner's looking, like his partner knows that's BS. And it's like, give me your gun, walk between with those small tail between yours. Like, oh, this ain't no tail. And he walks away, and Chris confronts his partner, but he's like, I was waiting outside, which we as the audience know BS. So his partner's covering from just that blue veil. For them, it's a situation of like, this is a scumbag criminal. It doesn't matter, but it does. Regardless of what he did, he is someone's child. No mother should have to like have her child killed in front of her. Like the point is, justice is getting him arrested. Like Chris didn't want to kill him. Jackie didn't really want to kill him. They were going to like, oh, we're going to do this by the books. We're going to get him arrested. And even DeCourcy shows up, and he's trying to tell Grace, I'm sorry. She's like, no, you're not. You know, he's like, I know your pain. She's like, no, you don't, because we were trapped. You get to walk away. You know, it's like from like this circumstance, it's like, you get to just kind of walk away. Like, I think it's just the environment her children grew up in. DeCourcy didn't have to grow up, didn't have to raise a family in a situation like that. Him and Siobhan are well off to live in a good neighborhood, so they don't have to be trapped by their circumstances. Also trapped by this, you know, it's like, you know, losing one child, having another one in a hospital, it's a lot. And DeCourcy walks up and see Anton's dead body. So obviously the conversation is like, yo, what about Tony? Because Guy is like, this is a effed up situation. Like, what are we going to do under these circumstances? This was supposed to be a simple arrest, and now it's turned into a shitstorm, which now you have DeCourcy being like, he wants Tony. And it's like, oh, you want to go after the Boston Police Department again? He's like, no. I just want to do justice. Like, justice is supposed to work both sides of the law. Criminals do their thing, we go after them. Cops do some dirty shit, we go after them. So it's like, yeah, we're going to handle this delicately, but it's still going to get handled. That's the point. And Jackie's kind of got this look like, I wonder what his role is going to be in that, if there's going to be any at all. I'm sure Chris is just going to step aside because it's like, yeah, which is such a shame because like this all started because Tony ended up getting like blamed for those drugs in that girl's car, like being planted and stuff like that. You know, there's also a personal grudge of like, right, all that shit Anton was talking, and he was also getting like mad shit because it's like, oh, you attacked Anton, so that was kind of coming against him a little bit too. But it's like the cop definitely had a like chip on his shoulder to begin with. Maybe just these circumstances, maybe the two interactions we had with him in the show, maybe that's what pushed him to the point he wants to pop on Anton. But yeah, the fact is his partner's lying to him. I'm curious if DeCourcy going to be able to get him to kind of ultimately end up confessing, like, all right, yes, my partner, like Anton did swing on him, like, because we saw too, even though the camera pulls away, Anton never turned around, did he? Like, Anton never saw it coming. The home dude shot him because he was like, I see this opportunity. I'm going to take, like, either just because he saw, like, oh, a criminal that's no good, let me kill him, or a black criminal who, in his mind, is a scumbag, so I didn't see it coming, so, we'll see how that pops, like, how that gets handled next episode, if they, I'm assuming they're going to tackle that angle to it, but, there is a conversation with DeCourcy and Jackie because DeCourcy feels bad. It's like, yeah, he wanted to get his hands on Anton, and now he kind of got what he wanted because he wanted Anton to feel Siobhan's pain. It's like, she lost a baby, now he lost a life. It's also the sad thing, it's like, they lost a child, and now Grace did too, but it's like, for him, it's like, I feel bad. Like, you know, that vengeance, you know, when you feel so much hate, you think it's going to, like, once you got your revenge, you've got nothing else to hold on to. Like, that hole in your heart that was replaced for vengeance, it's only temporary, because once you get it, you go back to feeling like shit. And Jackie's like, why? You didn't kill him. He's like, yeah, but someone still died. And obviously for Jackie, it's a thing of basically saying that the world's this way. It's a us versus them, no matter where you're at, whether it's Boston or whether it's just the world, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, it's always an us versus, hell, even just your favorite football team, it's always an us versus them type of situation. And he's like, oh, so you're saying that like it's a good thing? Jackie's like, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just the way things are, you know? And then, you know, of course, he says the price of hate, and Jackie just kind of looks at him and it's like, yeah, like, there's always going to be, once again, it's that vengeance, that there is always going to be a price for hate. There's no winners when it comes to hate, you know? So that's where we leave off in that regard. Another angle to this story is the whole situation with, for one, Faust being brought over for dinner. I thought was pretty dope. I love those interactions. Jackie asking those questions like, "Oh, why are you wearing a tie?" It's like, "Shouldn't we just eat?" He's like, "No, what do people normally do when they eat? They're talking, and that's what I'm doing." He's asking all these questions, and it's like, "Oh yeah, like it's like, oh, you want to go to NYU, huh? Benny's going to NYU. Did you two plan that out?" It's like, "No, we did our set of stuff in separately." But the fact of the matter is, I am happy, play familiar face in a place of strangers. It's like, yeah, but Boston's a town, New York's a city, and then he just puts down his fork and knife and he's like, looking at Jenny, "You're gonna let him shit all over Boston?" She's like, "Yeah, you always do, And then when he gets outside, he's like, "Hey, kid, what would you do if I punched you?" And he's like, "What?" He punches him, and then Faust punches him back, and he's like, "Oh, good." He's like, "What the fuck?" It's like, "I just need to know if you're going to be dating my daughter. I just need to be able to know you can protect her." Which is like, oh, that's actually super sweet. Kind of an effed up way to go about it, but yeah. And I love that Jackie's kind of like, ugh, because kid landed a good one on him. So I thought that was interesting. There's also the situation where Jenny's trying to help out Maeve. Maeve ended up telling her to sing and convincing her to do the solo and everything. Which obviously she told Jackie, and Jackie was like celebrating and stuff because I love at first it's like, oh, like who's our guest? And it's like, oh, is it that Banshee? It's like, no, it's not Maeve. He's like, fuck my ass. It's not your mother, is it? And she's like, what? No, oh God, no, please. But nevertheless, so it's a circumstance of Jenny ultimately brings up like, I need some money. It's like, do you need money? And it's like, no, it's about her. No, you don't need money. Your friend need money. It's like, okay. And it's like, okay, make me sympathetic of why I should help her out. It's like, the IRA is after. And Jackie's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, I saved her from this dude. And it was like, he's like, wait, you did? She's like, yeah, I hit him with a brick. And he's like, okay, just listen to me. Stay away from her. These guys are animals. And just like, he's saying it from a place of concern. He's legitimately telling her to not get involved in this stuff. And the moment he was like, these guys are animals, and then it made me go like, oh yeah, Maeve set you up. The fact is you were able to scare that dude off, especially the way Jackie's talking. It's like, the way he's being an asshole about it. He's saying like they're animals and stuff like that. It was just kind of easy. A guy got hit by a brick and just left. It's like, nah, she probably set that up to make it seem like, oh, I need your help, and make Jenny more likely to believe her story and everything, and kind of be more sympathetic to her. Like that, it's a ploy. And yeah, because if that dude wanted to, he probably would have killed both of them. Not unless that wasn't even a guy. Not unless that's someone that, I would assume he's a part of this, but it could have just been someone Maeve hired. But ultimately, Jenny ends up giving her the money. Father Doyle sees that and brings it up to Jackie, like, yeah, this person in particular, she's going to buy guns. And it's like, okay, so I guess she confessed. Once again, I brought it up, like, Maeve was super shady because the way she was being super cheeky when she was talking to Father Doyle, that didn't seem like someone that was necessarily hiding. Well, she's hiding for a different reason, not for I'm fearing for my life. And it's like, no, because it's like, because as Jackie was saying, it's like the IRA vacations here in Boston. So it's like, don't think of her as like I'm the victim, that there's a reason why she's hearing everything. So when the time comes, Jackie ends up confronting Jenny. He's like, I told you to leave her alone. You gave my money to a terrorist. It's like, the money. She's like, it came up about the money in the basement. He's like, that's our getaway money. She's like, do you realize how fucked up it is that you have getaway money? Which is interesting to know that he's got that stashed away. I guess whenever shit ultimately hits the fan, he's ready to bounce. So I think that speaks volumes. But nevertheless, Jenny's, talks about the fact is the money came from their account. And I forgot, she was saying something about Jackie being pathetic. And then he talks about, that tattoo you got with the tattoo you got and stuff like that. That's pathetic. She's like, yeah, you weren't saying that last night when we were kind of, the other night when we were doing our thing. So that's kind of an open storyline of like, yeah, I think that's going to be something that goes sideways next episode is Maeve. Maeve is going to be up to some, we're going to see probably some death because of Maeve. Because eventually this is being the 90s, I don't see them doing that, but it could be a thing of that money does ultimately get traced back to Jackie, and that becomes an issue, and I don't know. Because my initial thought was like maybe like Father Doyle is kind of hiding away too, but it's like no, it's most likely like he took her confession about her background and stuff like that. So for him, he probably saw that she was still connected to her wicked ways. So it was like, oh, it's not like she's trying to repent or anything. She's still trying to like, she's still a part of like, you know, everything. Once again, like I am someone who's ignorant to the IRA. Like I said, I did a tiny bit of Googling last episode. And so like, I'm very ignorant to that and just everything that Northern Ireland has been dealing with in the past and was dealing with at this particular time. But, obviously, Jenny does her solo. Faust is there. Benny is there, which I even love her giving her those advices. Like, yeah, drink some, no coffee, drink some water, no ice, because it does help with, like, singing and stuff like that. So, how you know? It's like, oh, I read in books. It's like, oh, you are your father's daughter. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's a compliment. But Faust is there, and I love that when Jenny does her thing, Benny starts clapping, and Faust has to stop her. He's like, nah, this isn't the place to be doing that, but it was super nice. Sadly, Jackie wasn't there. To be fair, he was dealing with the whole Anton thing at the time, so there's that angle of it. But I think that, like I said, I think that Maeve storyline is going to go super sideways next episode. So we'll see. Another angle to this is Kathy, you know, selling some drugs. I love that she goes to Jimmy's spot. I love the whole situation. The guy's like, he's like, oh, where's Jimmy? It's like, oh, yeah, Jimmy's gone. It's like, what's your name? They're saying we don't need to be on a first name basis. He's like, actually, I thought you were a hooker. He's like, yeah, nice, asshole. He's like, no, that was a compliment. She's like, how the fuck is that a compliment? I think in his mind, it's like, oh, I thought you were a hooker. I think it's like, oh, it's a shady neighborhood and you're a pretty lady, so I just assumed you were a hooker. I guess that was meant to be like the backhanded compliment of like, oh, it was maybe that's what he meant. I think that's what he meant it as, like that backhand. I think that's supposed to be what it means. But I also love that like she hid the drugs under like her sweatband. I thought that was interesting. Interesting place to hide them. Then like, I was wondering what was going to happen with Kick this episode. Her going through stuff. I was like, man, oh man. And the moment she finds the box, I was like, oh. I was like, please don't tell me you're going to sniff that or leave it out. But then she opens up another thing and finds Frankie's death certificate. I was like, oh boy. Wasn't expecting that reveal. I knew it was going to happen eventually. Like they were going to find out the truth. I just wasn't expecting that. Then it seems like she threw out the rest of her mom's drugs, which Kathy didn't find out this episode. That's going to be an issue next episode. Ooh, that's going to be an issue. Ooh, that's going to be a super big issue next episode. Oh, that sucks. But Kick did that because she was mad. I wonder did Kick assume like, oh, these are my mom's drugs to like deal with stuff and like, oh, this is going to make her like, this is how she deals with stuff. Oh, she's getting high all the time instead of taking, you know, and not realizing, oh, the drugs is how your mom is take care of you of your two siblings. But like obviously like, you know, she confronts Kick later on and Kick's like, yeah, I know my dad's dead. And she's like, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to really believe it. And obviously Kick just wants to be left alone. But once again, Kathy doesn't know that about the drugs and everything. That's going to be a sore subject later on. Like I said, I'm pretty sure she dumped out the rest of her drugs. I don't think that was all of it. I'm pretty sure that was only some of it. But hey, maybe not. It seemed like she was dumping stuff out the window, and I think it was the drugs, which is a problem because she bought those drugs off of people. So like she's going to owe money for all of that. So it's like, oh boy, that's going to cause more issues. Kick, I get it, like, but you shouldn't have done that. Should have, I don't know, throw out your mom's jewelry or something. I get it, you were angry, but it's like, you kind of put yourself and your family in danger. I mean, your mom kind of got justice for your dad to a certain extent because she ultimately ended up killing your uncle. You don't know about that either, so it's just like, ugh. It seems like everyone's kind of on the up and up. I was about to say, like, in the sense that, like, everything kind of worked out for everyone, but it's like, nah, there's still some kind of, like, obviously there's no going up for, like, Siobhan and DeCourcy after what they've lost. It's like, this doesn't resolve anything for them. That pain is still there. Jackie, things are okay, but I'm sure like he's going to get effed over by this whole Maeve thing. That's probably going to blow back on his family super hard. And I think Kathy's situation is about to get complicated too. Next week's episode is the season finale. I just stick around for a little bit of the preview just to make sure, because I had looked on Wikipedia like a week or two ago, and I saw that it was only saying 8 episodes, which I was surprised by. I don't know if that's like, either this season was initially planned to be that short, or whether it was just they had to change things just because production-wise, but I feel like there was enough time for them to maybe shift that, or I don't know, maybe it was always meant to be 8 episodes. I didn't read into it too much. I just saw like in the thing that like, oh, season 1 is 10, this was 8. I just assumed that this was going to be 10 just because the first season was, but regardless, I'm really interested to see where the season finale takes us. Most of the storyline has been resolved. We do see a moment in the church. I caught a glimpse of it, which I'm like, we're going to be dealing with the aftermath of everything with Grace. Because basically she wanted the FBI and like their offices to kind of give like the blessings to kind of get some funding for like what she was fighting for and stuff like that. So there's that, but it's probably also going to be like the community dealing with the aftermath of everything with Grace, Anton's death. That's going to be interesting too, because it's like, oh, Anton's dead, yeah, but he was up to some shady shit. Might even tie him into the whole thing with Raina. Who knows if that's how that's going to play out, and how the general reaction is going to be towards Grace. I mean, how the reaction is going to be to Siobhan and DeCourcy. They might be seen a little in a better light. I was just wondering, like, maybe it might be seen as like a revenge type of thing. I don't know. Once again, the Maeve thing, everything with Kathy. It's going to be interesting to see where things go. There was that line from Grace at the end of the episode where she was like, we're unbreakable now, baby. Because I guess it's like, after we've been through what we've been through, lost what we lost, there's no breaking us. Like, we've got each other, and we're gonna find a way forward. You know, because at that time, Kelvin still doesn't know because Grace didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to wake him up just to tell him his brother's dead. So, like I said, we will see where the season finale takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.